Hey guys, welcome back to another week of What's for Dinner. So first we are making some good old-fashioned turkey wraps. So I've just got a couple burrito tortillas here. I'm spreading on some mayonnaise, and then I'm going to add a little bit of spicy brown mustard. And then basically you can just put whatever you want on it. We chose to do turkey, bacon bits, lettuce, cheese, and the sauces, of course. But I'm just going to wrap these up, and me and my husband are going to have these with some chips and a pasta side on the side. You will have to excuse my voice in this What's for Dinner voiceover. I'm currently recovering from COVID again, so I just wanted to give that little disclaimer. But we basically needed something for dinner that I did not have to use the oven for. It has been so hot here in Missouri, and if you follow any of my vlogs, you know that my air conditioning in my house doesn't work very well. The ductwork is just too small, and it's just kind of one of them things. So we definitely needed something that was going to not heat up the kitchen, and this is definitely something that is perfect for that. Okay, so for dinner tonight, we are going to be having some tuna pasta salad. This is not something that I've ever made before, but I found a recipe on Pinterest and I want to try it. So I have a bunch of different ingredients here. I will link the original recipe down below, but basically I'm going to make this sauce like I would my regular tuna salad. So I've got some Hellmann's mayonnaise here. I'm not measuring, but I'm just going to eyeball what I think that I need. So I have about a cup of mayonnaise. I'm gonna do like 1/4 cup of Miracle Whip. Maybe not even that much. I'm gonna do maybe like 2 tablespoons of mustard. You wanna start small with this. Actually, that was probably more like a tablespoon. And then I've got some dill relish. I'm just gonna do like a tablespoon to start out with. And then I've got sweet relish here. I'm gonna do like 1/2 tablespoon. Yeah. And then I've got some of this minced onion. I don't have a whole lot of it left, so I'm just gonna eyeball what I think. You can have the white one. Yeah. So I'm just gonna add a little bit. The recipe calls for red onion. I added maybe like a tablespoon of dried onion, but we don't like red onion, so I'm just gonna add the minced. And then I've got some onion powder, maybe just like a teaspoon. I've got garlic powder, maybe like 1/2 teaspoon. And then just some salt and pepper. I'm not gonna add a whole lot of each of this until I taste it. But just so I can see it, I guess. Okay. And then for some color, I'm just gonna do some parsley. So maybe like a teaspoon. And my grandma taught me that if you rub it between your palms and like warm up the herb, it releases flavor. So that's what I did there. So I'm just going to get the mayonnaise off of this. And then just whisk it together. You need me to help you? Okay, I cooked my pasta to al dente and I drained it. and then rinse it with cold water so it would stop cooking. She was gonna add that in and then stir it all together. Switch back to my spoon here. Okay, and then I'm gonna get my eggs and my tuna. Thank you. All right, so I've got 1 can of tuna here. This is the albacore tuna. The recipe calls for 3 to 4 cans if you're using a full thing of pasta, but I just used half of it. So I'm just gonna mix that. I probably would have added another can. So if you make this, just make sure that you add another can, because that's probably not gonna be enough, but it's what I have, so. So I'm just gonna use my egg chopper and chop these up. I got this one at a yard sale like 4 years ago for 25 cents.
I will put it on there.
There's that. And then we'll just mix it together. Make sure we get all of that incorporated. All right, I'm gonna taste it, try to get everything in there.
I want the eggs.
That's good.
I want
Okay.
the eggs.
So we're done. I will just put a lid on this, and it needs to refrigerate at least an hour, but it's probably gonna be like 5 or 6 hours, so good there. Okay, no more salt, please. I almost forgot the most important part, French fried onions. So I have a 6-ounce bag here. So I'm just gonna eyeball it, throw in maybe a cup. Actually, that's probably like half a cup. And I'm just gonna mix these in with it. And then right before you serve, or you can just sprinkle it on each individual one. I like crispy French fried onions, so I'll probably just throw some on top of mine whenever we serve this, but there is that. That looks much better. Tonight for dinner we are having salisbury steak and meatballs. So I've got my Crockpot on low here. I'm gonna start on mixing up the sauce. So I've got 1.25 cups of beef broth. The recipe calls for low sodium, but I don't have that because I use the beef bouillon. So I'm just gonna omit the salt that it calls for. I've got 2 tablespoons of butter that are melted. It calls for 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. I'm just gonna eyeball this. Looks good. It does not call for garlic, but I'm gonna go ahead and add some in there just because it feels right. So I'm just gonna do like a tablespoon. And then I'm gonna mix all this together. And I will leave this recipe linked down below for you. I actually saw it on TikTok, and I thought it looked good, so I just looked it up on Pinterest. So I will link it down below for you. And then I'm gonna add meatballs. I just use these frozen ones from Walmart. You can use whatever you want. You can make your own meatballs if you like, but I'm doing it the easy way. So I'm gonna add the whole bag in. Try and make it as even as possible. And then it calls for a whole onion, but I have a really big onion here, so I'm just gonna do half of it. We're just gonna throw that on top. And then it calls for an 8-ounce thing of mushrooms. So I've got some baby bellas here. I'm just gonna throw these in on top. And then we will cook this on low for about 6 hours. I don't know if they'll need the whole 8, but we'll start with 6 and then go from there. With this meal, we decided to do some mashed potatoes, and then we used the sauce from the Salisbury steak for the gravy. This was such a good meal. Like I said, I found the recipe on TikTok, and then I looked up the actual recipe on Pinterest. We ended up serving this with some corn and some pineapple on the side, and like I said, this was so good. Highly recommend. For this next recipe, I made this for the 4th of July. This is a red, white, and blue cheesecake salad. So you're basically just going to take some whipped cream, some pudding. The recipe calls for cheesecake pudding, but I did not want to spend double the price on cheesecake pudding, so I just got the Great Value French vanilla pudding, and I mean, it turned out just fine. So if you're trying not to spend a ton of money, then the Great Value brand is just fine. You're just going to mix this together as your sauce, and then you can use whatever berries that you want. I used blueberries, strawberries, and then we had a little bit of pineapple left that I went ahead and threw in there, and just for the 4th of July, the colors. So yeah, this was really good. It also calls for some yogurt, which I thought was really odd, but it gave it a really good flavor, so definitely don't skip on that. But I will leave the actual recipe link down below for you. I believe I saw it on Facebook, and then I just went and found it on Pinterest. But yeah, this was really good. Everybody really raved about it. One thing that I will say though is it's only good for like one day. After a couple of days, usually about 48 hours, it starts to disintegrate the marshmallows and it doesn't taste as well. But as long as the berries are holding up, then it's good. So yeah, I would definitely recommend trying this for any of your summer get-togethers this year. Okay, this next recipe is something else that I brought to a 4th of July get-together. It is artichoke dip. I did double the recipe just because it is a crowd pleaser and I wanted to make sure that there was enough for everyone. I will leave the recipe linked down below for you. It is another Pinterest recipe, but I have made it multiple times for multiple get-togethers, and it is definitely a good one. I would recommend, though, that if you're going to use this recipe, to cut the mayonnaise in half and replace the other half of the mayonnaise with sour cream. Just because whenever you go to reheat it, it gets a little bit greasy because of all the mayonnaise and all the cheeses in it, but just that little caveat for you. But like I said, I will leave the actual recipe linked down below for you. Also, the recipe is going to tell you to bake it in the oven, which is just fine. I've done that, but I did need to keep it warm for a longer period of time. So I decided to use my Crockpot, and this worked just fine. It keeps it warm and everything is just fine. And then you can serve this with crackers or tortilla chips. We decided to do tortilla chips just because it was cheaper, and we are all about keeping things on a budget around here. So yeah, like I said, this was a crowd pleaser. Highly recommend, especially if you love artichokes. Okay, this last one is one that I have made in many of my vlogs, and I believe in a couple what's for dinners, but I still wanted to include it because it is so good. It's just Italian pasta salad is what I call it. Some people call it summer salad, but basically you're just going to want to do some noodles. I've got black olives, mini pepperoni, string cheese, cucumber, and some tomatoes, and then you're just going to put these all in a bowl with some Olive Garden Italian dressing and let it marinate for a few hours, and it is so good. It's so refreshing, and the recipe that I use usually calls for cherry tomatoes, but just take the tomatoes out of a cheap tomato and add it in there, and it is so good. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please subscribe. Other than that, I will see you in my next one. Bye guys.